Are we currently on the cusp of evolutionary revolution? Can the evolution process differ between various entities, hybrids, cyborgs, and humans, due to the human technological and genetic intervention?
Oh, there is no doubt that that evolution continues. It's interesting that we have a tendency to think of evolution as a very slow, very long process. But in these past 20, 30 years, we have witnessed the extinction of numerous species, which has an evolutionary consequence. We have put pressure on a number of other species to differentiate and to, for example, through pollution, right? So certain the use of pesticides. I mean, we put a lot of pressure in the environment that not only through pesticides and pollution, but also economic choices. You know, for example, when a company like McDonald's chooses a particular apple to incorporate into their salads, they elevate a particular fruit that very few planted to one of the most planted fruits in the country. So these reversals in the ratio of crops have a role also in the life of insects, which have to do with predators. So now we're talking about one economic decision made in Wall Street has massive ecological impact in the environment, and you couple that with pesticides. So it's really a chain reaction, and so we're constantly humans are constantly playing a role in affecting this network of life that we call evolution. So evolution continues to happen. And my Natural History of the Enigma, as did my Jeff P. Bunny and other works before, are artworks that work with the logic of evolution, but not respecting either the random course of events that happened in 4 billion years, not following any Wall Street directive, but following a very personal, poetic directive that is my own artistic vision. You know?
Is interspecies communication probable, assuming that people develop adequate tools of communication and expand their senses? Or does human understanding you mention in your essay hinder the possibility?
In the sense of creating the possibility of response is the opening of a channel. That's the precondition for communication. If there is no opening, then there is no possibility of communication because there is no possibility of exchange. To me, that's the fundamental, both epistemological, but also ontological in the material sense. You see, the materiality of these processes are key, you know, and this is where it becomes a challenge in our conversation, because you process science, right? So you write, you read, you give lectures, right? You produce books. And I fundamentally process materials. But there is a materiality to the sign, and there is a semiosis to the material. But they're not the same. And one cannot be reduced to the other, right? The materiality of DNA cannot be reduced to text in that sense, right? And an idea cannot be reduced to a specific embodiment either. But it's important to have that clear, right? Because my interest is in affirming the materiality of these processes, because to me that's where the poiesis comes from in the larger philosophical sense, but also in this other more lyrical, personal, subjective sense, which I have to bring it back to because that's what I do as an artist, right? What would plant understanding be, right? There is phytosemiosis, right? Plants do decode signs. What are the signs that plants decode? Usually molecules that say different things to them, right? So perhaps plants have a limited vocabulary according to their way of being in the world, but they do practice some level of semiosis. They do not get confused. When they get a molecule, they know what to do. They don't think, oh, I should be doing something else. They know what to do with that molecule. But they don't have, they certainly don't have a nervous system like we do. And they certainly don't have consciousness like we do, but they're not like a chair. They're alive. And there is a specificity to being alive. The living organism is extremely complex, right? Even bacteria practice some level of semiosis. Bacteria are not indifferent to what happens around them. They make decisions. Is there a brain? No, there is no brain. Is there consciousness? Well, what does that mean exactly? If consciousness is distributed, you could say that collectively they possess some level of awareness, right, of what happens in the environment. So just pull this. So I'm going to show you this first, and you stand. You stand right there.
IF.
You have to move.
G like L, E, nearly love.
But you see the fluidity of the sign.
Yeah.
And in its relative circumstance to the kinesthetic choices that you make.
Yes.
So I'm inventing kinesthetic reading, which to my surprise is a topic of discussion in electronic literature these days. But when I first did this, I was just talking to the walls. Nobody had any idea what I was talking about. I believe in a semiological continuum. In my holographic poetry, for example, I created the concept of the fluid sign, because the whole edifice of semiosis, is predicated on what I perceive to be a false idea of a unity and integrity of the sign. So a sign has to have clear boundaries to be recognized as such, and especially a verbal sign gets printed and it gets into the economy of the distributed print medium, etc. All of these things have to be immutable, right? Again, we're back to freaking philology, right? Mm-hmm. These things have to be stable, immutable, and have to be transmittable, and all that. And then the whole culture develops around that, and the whole economy develops around that. But what happens if I break that? What happens if I undo that? What happens if, I look from this perspective as a chair, and now it's a dog. It's the same thing that is there, but now it's not there anymore. Oh, now it's a flower again. Oh, no, it's a dog. Oh, no, it's a chair. So if this sign that is there has no finite, finished contour that can be domesticated by vision or discourse.
But can we communicate by means of unstable signs when they have like no real meaning, or rather you want to say that in any communication or approaching any science we should like take into consideration also, our place in the relation to the piece, or...
Yes, exactly. I am saying that we are rarely aware of the fact that your point of view plays a role in everything that you see, that you read, that you do. Yes. We're never aware of that point of view. It's just the air, like we're talking about before. But your point of view is determinant in everything you do, you say, you think, you act.
understand and.
But this is, here, this is embodied. I'm not telling you that. You are having the experience of that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not reading about it, you're living it. As a reading act.